anytime that I do a video and talk about a 5-thread overlock stitch, I ask myself, why don't I use this stitch all the time? Once you see how easy it is to set up for 5 threads and the amazing, secure, little bit wider overlock and chain stitch seam that you get from this stitch, I question myself why I even use a 4-thread overlock. The bernette b68 airlock serger is the model in this series that we are filming that has the 5-thread feature. Hi, I'm Sarah from sewingmastery.com, and we've been doing all the free video tutorials on the models B62, B64, and the B68. We've got links to all the free video tutorials along with my favorite serger classes in the description below, plus a link where you can binge watch all the videos from the beginning to truly learn your serger inside and out. Or if you're considering buying this serger, these videos can also help you make the best decision of which model would be right for you. If you haven't already, find the link in the description where you can download what I call the cheat sheet for all the stitches on the B68 model. There's also even a couple workbooks that will help you work through all the different stitches and really help you master this machine. So I would go through the videos, print off those pages, and follow along step by step and learn this serger from A to Z. Once you've done all the stitches, you really will know this serger inside and out. It'll make it so much easier for your next project. So for today, we are talking about the combo stitches. So why are they called combo stitches? It's because we're going to combine an overlock with a seaming stitch. So it's like a sewing machine stitch, but it's actually a 2-thread chain stitch. It's going to consist of us moving one of the needles to a totally different location and using the 3rd looper or the cover stitch looper. On this model, you're using 2 loopers, the upper looper and the lower looper, when you're doing your normal overlock stitches. But you'll notice the 3rd looper down here is a little bit more in front of those overlock loopers, and it is going to be connected to one needle in a slightly different position that will create the 5-thread seam. Let's start with the easiest part of this stitch is adding the cover stitch looper thread. That's going to be the purple one, and if you've been following along, I love to have my new students always use colors that coordinate with the tensions. That way, when you look at the finished seam, you can see, okay, my blue one looks a little off. Okay, well, let's look at the blue thread, see if you've missed a guide, or see if the tension dials are in the right ballpark in relationship to the default settings of each of the stitches. It will also make that workbook that you might be working through a little easier to identify and look at or refer back to at a later time after you have gone through each of those stitches the first time through. Start by closing the air tubes by pushing the lever to the far left and then taking your hand and turning the hand wheel until you hear the click. Thread the first guide back here by the thread cone. Bring the thread down through the tension disc, and if your presser foot is down, give it a little kind of flossing action to make sure it's seated all the way as deep as it should go. There's one more guide and it hides underneath here. Make sure you don't miss it by connecting it and hooking it underneath. Next, take the thread, slide it down the air hole, bring a little extra thread in front of you to kind of puddle here, so when you push the button, there's enough thread to send it all the way through. And here it is, already coming out the bottom of the serger. I like to just go ahead and cut the length to 2 to 3 inches and know that I'm going to just close the door and forget about it. Before you close the door, slide the lever to the right to open up the air tubes. And if you don't, remember, your door just won't close until you do just that. So let's talk needles. Now it looks like there's a lot of stitches for the combo option. And there's every possible location, whether you use a 3-thread narrow, a 3-thread wide, a 2-thread narrow, or a 2-thread wide, and whether the chain stitch needle that I'm going to show you how to move is actually either in the center position or the left needle position. And if you add up all those various combinations, you have 8 different stitches. Honestly, I'm going to just go ahead and show you one of them, but it's very simple to just follow along at any one of these options, set the tensions and numbers as directed, and you'll have the perfect stitch. I'm going to do this one down here, stitch number 38, the 3-thread overlock with the left needle and the chain stitch in the left cover stitch position. So everything's as far as possible and as big as possible. This would be great, especially if you had some thicker fabric, some fluffier fabric, or really, really deep seam you want to create. If you study all these pictures, the chain stitch needle will always be noted in yellow, no matter which location it's actually in. So the yellow thread I am going to leave in here, but do keep in mind this one needs to go through the needle that I place in the chain stitch location. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to start by just clipping the yellow thread and the green thread from the 2 needles. See these 3 long ovals? The chain stitch needle will need to be in the center one or the far left one. This location is then lined up with the cover stitch looper, which is, as you can see, much more in front of the traditional overlock loopers that are back here lined up with the 2 needles that are in there now. Now, for the most efficient use of moving needles around, I'm actually going to remove the right needle and bring it all the way over and line it up in this hole and use the C needle screw for its location. If you haven't gotten in the habit yet of using the needle threader to catch the needle you are loosening and removing, this would be a great time to see how easy that is. I've loosened the screw at the top, it dropped the needle out, and before I go much further, I'm going to make sure that screw gets tightened back up so it doesn't wiggle loose. Now, move this needle to the location of the left chain stitch location. Make sure the needle is still flat side to the back, loosen the screw at the top, and make sure the needle gets all the way to its highest position. You can now see how much forward that chain stitch needle is in relationship to the overlock needle. Now remember, with a 5-thread, all the threads move over 1 notch. So the yellow thread is now going through the chain stitch needle, and the green thread is going through the needle that will create the 3-thread overlock. Finish setting the tensions based on the chart. 3.5 for the chain stitch needle, 6.5 for the overlock needle. Everything else should be at 4. The cutting width should be at 6. Your rolled hem setting should be normal. The stitch length should be lengthened to 3, and just make sure your differential feed is set to normal at 1. Close up the doors and let's stitch. Look how wide that stitch is in comparison to what you've probably been using so far as a 4-thread overlock. As we flip it over, you'll see the chain stitch is absolutely beautiful. The purple is that chain stitch looper that we added, but we also are pairing it with a wide 3-thread overlock. The true benefit of a 5-thread is that this seam is very, very stable. Because this is more like a sewing machine stitch, and eliminates the stretch that you would have on normal knit fabrics. That means that this seam will not grow or lengthen as it is worn or hung on a hanger. This is a perfect seam for inside of jeans and shoulder seams that need reinforcing so they don't get longer and longer just because it's a knit fabric. And just for comparison, look at the difference in width that you get from a traditional 4-thread to a 5 thread. And did you notice that I was able to just go ahead and serge off the edge? So you'll use it just like a regular seam. If you were matching threads, your outside needle and chain stitch looper should match the color of your fabric, because that is the seam that you're going to see. And again, anytime that I see this, I ask myself, why don't I use a 5 thread on a regular basis instead of a 4 thread? Sometimes I just need to leave my serger set up with this stitch to force myself to use it more often. If you're looking for all the free video tutorials, the links in the description will get you to where you can start binge watching all the videos. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe as your way of saying thank you for the free videos. Happy serging!